And I can say welcome everyone to our webinar, and if you're watching this back later, to our recording of a session which is all about JPIT's internships, and particularly aimed at people who are wondering about whether to apply, thinking about whether to apply. So you can find out a bit more about this before you put in your application, hear a bit more about what it's like to be an intern at JPIT, learn a bit more about the team, and hear about the application process and what we'll be looking for as we make this selection and appointment. So what we're going to be doing today, we've got half an hour scheduled. We'll talk a bit more about the team, and then Florence, who's one of our current interns, will talk a bit more about her experience and the two roles that are going to be on offer that we're advertising for. And then we will talk through the application process, and throughout we're going to be open to your questions. There's a Q&A function in this webinar, and at the bottom of your screen, it's almost certainly at the bottom of your screen, you will find a Q&A box where you have the opportunity to submit any questions that you've got throughout the time that we've got together. You can put your name against them if you wish, but you don't have to. You can stay completely anonymous within this webinar, and we won't be taking note of people's names anyway, so it won't have any effect on your application, whether you ask a question or not. But if you have questions, then that is the place to put them, and we will try and cover as many as we can in the time that we've got available. And hopefully the things that we have kind of planned to say and to share will help you answer the questions that you don't even know you have yet, but are important questions to answer. So a very warm welcome to this session. Let me just introduce my colleagues who are with me on the screen, or rather, even better, I'll introduce myself and then let them introduce themselves too. So my name's Simeon Mitchell. I'm the team leader of the Joint Public Issues team. I'm employed by the Methodist Church. I've been working as part of JPIT for the last 7 years now, and it's a great joy and a great privilege to have this role. Let me pass over to Rue.
Hi everyone, I'm Rue and I work for the United Reformed Church, but I'm head of public issues for the URC, but I'm also part of the Joint Public Issues team, and I've been doing that for 6.5 years, so just after Simeon, almost coming up to 7 years in a couple of months' time. And shall I pass on to someone else? How's that? I'll pass over to Florence.
Hi, yeah, I'm Florence. I'm an intern at JPIT. Currently, my role is around the constituency action network. So that's around helping churches engage with their MP. I'm 7 months through now. So yeah, part through my year being a JPIT intern. And I'll pass on to Alex.
Thank you. So I'm Alex. I'm the Campaigns and Church Engagement Officer for JPIT, employed by the Methodist Church. And I'm one of the newest, well, the newest by quite a way, member of the team, and I'll be line managing the interns. So I'm really looking forward to meeting some of you in time. And I'm going to hand back now to Florence.
Yeah, so JPIT is an intriguing organization. There's a lot of levels to it. So I just thought it would be helpful if Rue, you could explain what is JPIT?
Okay, I will answer that in 3 minutes. That's all the time I've been given. But just to say, before I started working with JPIT, I had no idea who JPIT were. And for many of you, you might have very little idea of what JPIT is, what we do. And so I'm going to give you some of the basics. Sorry if you already know all the basics, but maybe you can ask some questions later on for some of the more tough details as well. But Joint Public Issues Team is what JPIT stands for. And it was formed back in, let me see, I think 2007 actually. So it's been around for nearly 20 years. And it was the Methodists and the Baptists and the United Reformed Church coming together and saying, hang on, we're doing a lot of the same kind of work in the same kind of areas. Shouldn't we join forces and pool our resources and pool our expertise and our time and our strengths and our abilities together for one cause, and to do that together really, really well? And so public issues really sits around all the things that affect wider society and also affects people in our churches. And quite often it's government facing. Quite often we're thinking about government policies and so on and how they might affect people. But it's even things like thinking about the environment or thinking about refugees and asylum seekers, thinking about big issues like the economy and what could our churches be saying around those. So JPIT has facilitated our different churches to speak together on some issues and to have a bit of a louder voice, but also for our churches individually also to explore some of those key issues as well, and for our local congregations around the country to then be inspired and well informed so that they can also take action as well. So I guess, to nail it into a couple of different things, we're really involved in thinking about how we communicate the issues, so give information to people. Then we're enabling people to speak out on those things and speak up on those things, so advocacy. And we're also campaigning as well, campaigning to bring change. We want to make life better for people, to make it more like we see the kingdom of God as being the values of Jesus, being enabled for people to flourish, people to thrive in society. I hope I've managed to say it in about 3 minutes, but there's far more than that, but that's a start.
No, it's good. So we've got Methodists, Baptists, United Reformed Church, and sometimes Church of Scotland as well, working together on peace and justice issues. It's a mouthful, but it's good. I believe we need to bring Alex on.
Yeah, so Florence, you are one of the interns at the moment. Can you explain the two roles for folks?
Yeah, so we have two roles available. One role, which is the role I have right now, which is around the Constituency Action Network, all about helping churches engage with their MPs. So what does that look like? I spend time speaking to people from different churches, giving them ideas about things they might do with their MP, creating resources to help encourage them about why faith and politics intersect. Yeah, thinking of ways to kind of resource them along that journey, as well as overseeing the project, keeping tabs on the team, various bits and bobs around that. And then the other role is focused on communications. So that's going to be involved with running the social media pages, the monthly newsletter, Politics in the Pulpit. That's our lectionary based podcast, which when it's running comes out every week. So there's a lot of work on the podcast, but also I'd say both interns really can kind of get stuck in with anything that they're interested in JPIT. The JPIT team are very kind of generous in that if there's something that gets mentioned that you're interested in, you can sort of put your hand up and say, oh, I would really like to help with that. So maybe you've got a real heart for refugees and there's a refugee campaign going on, you would be like more than welcome to get really involved with that. So I'd say there's also a degree of freedom within the roles. I've also ended up doing quite a few bits with sort of young adults and youth. So I've gone along to the URC Youth Assembly to do a workshop for young people on justice, because that's something that I was really passionate about, engaging young people, and I've been really supported with that. So you've kind of got those two main roles and main responsibilities, but then within that, you can kind of get involved with what you're interested in within JPIT.
Fabulous. So there's the Constituency Action Network role and the comms role, but lots of other opportunities as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about your experience of being an intern yourself and what has been really exciting whilst you've been an intern?
Yeah, I think it's such a privilege to work in a team where my values are really, I'm working on my values and with my faith every single day, and that is just such a joy. Yeah, I feel like looking for jobs out of uni, there were so many things that didn't represent my values, and it's really hard to find organizations that are really seeking justice and where I can also be, my faith is at the center of it. So that's been a real joy. I also feel like I've had real great insight into the kind of mechanisms behind campaigns and the decisions that go in, and decision making through churches, how these institutions work. That's been like really eye-opening for me. Kind of about project management and long-term thinking. I've really enjoyed getting to grips with some of that. And it's a really great team. Lots of the people on the team are real experts in their areas, and so I've often been quizzing someone on the economy or something, and people are again really generous with their time and their knowledge. So I've learned so much just from colleagues, which has been really great.
That's fabulous. So I think that you have some questions now for Rue and Simeon.
Yes. So I have no idea where you were all coming from applying for this, but yeah, this might be the first time you've ever filled out a job application, and so we really want to support you with that. We don't want you to be sort of left in the lurch, so we thought it would be helpful to really kind of look at that application process as if this is the first application you've done. And Rue and Simeon have looked at many JPIT internship applications over the years, so there's no one better to ask. Yeah, what is the application process like, and what are you looking for in a strong application?
There's a
I'll go
lot of
to
questions there. Florence, maybe we should unpack it and say and sort of just talk through what the stages of the process are to start with, and hopefully people who have come have found the information about the internship. There is a kind of job description for those two different roles that you've described, which are all available on the Methodist Church's recruitment website. So you can have a look at that, and that tells you both what kind of things the job involves, but also the kind of things that we're looking for as we go through the recruitment and selection process. So the first stage is that you need to fill in an application form, and it's an online form. And it asks you some sort of basic factual things about who you are and about your educational experience and any kind of work experience that you have. But then it has the three kind of main sections are three open questions which you're invited to answer. And this is an opportunity for you to tell us about yourself and to tell us how you meet the criteria that are set in the person specification, because they're the kind of things that we'll be looking at, and the things that our system, in order for us to have a fair process, requires us to score against as well. And Rue, I don't know if you'd like to talk us through those kind of questions, or maybe we take them one by one, the questions that people need to fill in relation to the application form.
Yes, okay. So the first question that you're going to be asked is tell us about a change you would like to see in the world and why. So in this question, we want to hear about an issue that you're passionate about and tell us why. You might have a personal connection with it, or it might be something that just you've done some work on or you've been thinking around. Just tell us why you're excited and passionate about that issue. And it could include some reflections around your own faith. It could be about your own lived experience or even some academic study. So that's the first one. Second one, you get about 500 words for the second one. The first one is a bit shorter at 350 words, which might sound a lot. You don't have to do all 350 words. If you can say it in less, that's absolutely fine. But you've got 500 words to say the second one, which is what skills and experiences would you bring to this role? Everyone's different. Everyone brings something different, and we want to hear what those things are that you bring. Don't feel you have to be like anyone else and try and replicate anyone else who's ever been an intern with us. Everyone is always different and brings something new and fresh, and we love that. So tell us in this question about the skills and experiences that you have, which you think would be useful for the team, that you can show that you are suitable for the role, and you can draw on your academic work, you can draw on voluntary work perhaps you've done, something in your church maybe, or other personal experience that will demonstrate this. And then the last one, that you've got 350 words to write for this one. How do you see this experience benefiting your growth and development? Because we're not just doing this because we want someone to come and work with us. We actually want to invest in you. We want to give you experiences and opportunities to grow, to develop, and to be much more equipped to do something else beyond this, perhaps doing more in peace and justice or in another area. But we want to see how you might change and what you might want to get out of this as well. So what are the opportunities that you would like to benefit your professional growth, your personal growth, your spiritual growth? And especially in terms of your faith. We do want to hear from you about that as well. This is a role where we are looking for people who are Christians to do this role specifically. So please do communicate that. Many times we have received forms from people and they've talked a lot about these issues and they've given us very good answers, but we're not actually quite sure if they're a Christian or not because they've not maybe made that clear in their responses. So please don't forget to include that aspect as well about how your faith will develop and what you've had in your faith, what experiences you've had in your faith, which might have inspired you and led you into work around peace and justice.
I just remind people at this point that if you've got questions about anything that we've said so far or things that we haven't covered that you are wondering about, then do use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to put in your questions, and we will try and deal with as many of those as we can before the end of the time together. So people, once they've filled in that online application form, which you need to do by the 22nd of April, which is just gives you the Easter weekend to finish it off, and it's just after Easter. That's the deadline, and we've got all the forms in, then we read them all through, and that is a real joy to do that and to get to learn a bit about the people who are interested in coming through for this role. We also have to then do a scoring process. So this is a way that the process is kind of kept fair, and we don't just go, well, we like the sound of that person. We have to look at the list of criteria that we have included within the person specification and see what evidence there is about each person's ability to meet those criteria. Now, we should say that no one ever gets full marks on that. You know, we're not looking for, we're not expecting to find people who can do everything on that list already. In fact, we're more interested actually in potential than in experience, but we are looking for evidence of interest and of capability around those areas. So then we do a scoring process, and the people that end up at the top of that list, then we would invite for an interview. And we do the interviews in person. We find you get a much better kind of sense of people if we can see each other face to face in a room. And those are scheduled for the 7th of May, and they would happen at the Methodist Church's office in London. At the end of that process, then we will hopefully have an opportunity to offer those two different roles that we talked about earlier to two different people, and following some sort of checks, taking up of references and medical checks and so on, then the offer of employment is confirmed. So that's the kind of process from start to finish. Florence, I hand back to you if there are other things that you think we need to say about the application process.
I guess, do you have any advice for the interview? What are you looking for in the interview, and what is the interview like?
We'll answer a little bit of that. We try and make the interviews as relaxed as possible, but we are very aware that it's very difficult to be relaxed in such a situation. But we will try and do it as in as friendly a way as we possibly can. We're not there to catch anyone out. We're actually just there to try and understand more about the people who we've asked to come and interview. It'll be in London, in a very nice leafy street near King's Cross in the north of London. And yeah, we'll try and make you as comfortable as possible. So don't worry too much about it. You know, when you come prepared for the interview, really you're coming prepared to show us what you've got inside your potential. If you don't feel that you've got particular strengths in particular areas, that's okay. Think about the things where you do have particular strengths and where you do have particular experience, and be prepared to give us an example or two of those. Think about the things maybe you've achieved, things that you're proud of, things that you've done that you think have made a difference in your life and other people's lives, that might be connected with some of our six hopes and our issues that we deal with as a group. But also check out our website as well. You know, we'll not be putting you on the spot and testing you, but you'll get from our website a sense of the things that we have been doing work on, the things that we care about, how we communicate. Those are all useful things that would help you when you come into the interview to kind of understand the kind of questions that we'll be asking, and then to be able to present yourself in the best possible way. Everyone who comes in is unique. Please don't worry about that you won't fit in. We have had so many different kinds of people come and join us as interns, and we really love that variety. So if you're someone who thinks, well, I don't fit in lots of other places, but I fit in here, I think you would fit in very nicely with us. So don't limit yourself. Don't talk yourself out of it. Go for it. We'd really love to get those applications in, and hopefully some of you then will come to interview too.
Thank you. Before we move on to answer people's questions, I think Alex is just going to ask a question or two about what this next year might look like.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Simeon, we've been spending a lot of time in the last few days talking about what some of our current projects are and the pieces of work coming up are. So, could you remind me and tell everyone else what some of the things are that are we're doing at the moment and that are coming up soon?
There is so much going on at the moment, and the interns coming into the team over the next few months will be involved in lots of really interesting pieces of work. Big project for the team is that we put on a conference every couple of years, and we've got our next conference scheduled for the 8th of November, which is going to be a huge gathering together, we hope, of people in the churches who are concerned about justice issues and want to know how they can make a difference and are trying to make a difference and want to connect with other people who are in that same role. So that a big part of the team's work over the next 6 months is going to be preparing for that event and making that a really good event. We've also got campaigns ongoing at the moment around poverty in the UK, child poverty, the cuts to disability benefits, the wider scene of why there has not been enough commitment to trying to reduce levels of poverty in the UK. There's obviously so much going on in the international scene at the moment. The current administration in America is throwing so many things up in the air, and that has opened up questions around things like defense policy, around international aid, and we're going to be involved in some campaigns and advocacy work around those questions. There's also the sort of ongoing climate crisis, and we're looking at developing a new advocacy campaign around that area. So that's something that our interns are likely to be very involved in too. So there's just a few of the areas of work that are coming up. But also, we should say one of the interesting and challenging things about working in JPIT is that we're responsive to what's going on in the world, and political issues can come up, at a moment's notice, and we need to be able to respond to that. So that means every week when we meet as a team, there's always a question of, oh, did someone see something about that? Did you read about that? Should we be responding to this event? And very often we're with the people who are coordinating our church's responses to current events, which is, as I say, a challenge, but also keeps it really interesting.
Thanks, Simeon. So I think now we're going to move to the Q&A and Simeon's going to address some questions. Just to remind folks that there's a way to ask questions anonymously, so please do keep them coming in.
Yeah, and if everyone can come back and join us, we've got some questions have come in, a couple that are kind of fairly straightforward, and I can answer. The first is there a set amount of weekly working hours for each role? And these are full-time roles, and that would normally be around 35 hours a week, kind of averaging out of working time. And then people are asking as well about the balance between working at home and in person in the office. And we work as part of that the interns are employed as part of the Methodist Church's connectional team, which has a hybrid working policy. In fact, the office base in London doesn't have space for everyone who's employed by the team to be in the office at the same time. So we've got to have a hybrid policy. And the expectation at the moment is that people are in the office or kind of in person working around 40% or a minimum of 40% of the time. So normally that averages out to a couple of days a week working in the office and then 2 or 3 days a week working from home. But there's scope to be flexible about that as time goes on, and depending on what kind of things are in people's calendars as well. So you do need to be able to come to the London office a couple of days a week, but you don't need to be based in London for the time. There's a question here has arisen about is there flexibility around the office presence because of reasonable adjustments for disability? I don't know if anyone else wants to answer that because I feel I'm doing lots of talking.
Um, I think I can say as a relatively new team member who lives with disability that the office has been a really good workplace as someone who lives with disability. There is the flexible working pattern, as Simeon said, so you wouldn't be in the office all of the time. But then as well with as that HR will speak with you about your reasonable adjustments, and will make sure that that there is a safe and healthy way. for you to work. So I wouldn't think of it as a barrier. I'd think of it as something that we'll be able to have conversations about in time. And the Methodist connectional team is really committed to equality and diversity, including around disability. So they're really set up to respond well to you.
And I would add to that, if you're not sure whether you'd be able to manage the 2 days a week in the office, don't let that put you off. If you have a disability in particular, I think we would shortlist people who meet our criteria, who have a disability, and this would be a conversation that then we would have at a later stage in the interview process. We would very much want to encourage applications from people with disabilities to this role. So another question is, what's the salary like? Well, the salary is published. I think it's just over £25,000 a year. We are committed to being a London living wage employer. So that is not national minimum wage. That's the London living wage, which is calculated as being what people might need to live on in London. So that's the salary. How many interviews do you do? Are there a mix of phone calls? And I think that might be that some of these kind of roles, people do a phone kind of screening interview before they get to an in-person interview. Rue, do you want to talk about the interviews a bit more?
Yes, I can. We'll try and fit as many people in on a day as we can. Shortlisted, maybe it might be 4 or 5. It's probably as many as we can reasonably fit into a day with a reasonable interview time with someone. It takes a bit of time to talk to someone and to settle in and all that kind of stuff. So we try not to rush the interviews, but we do want to see as many as we can as possible in that time. We're faced with really difficult decisions. I have to say, every time we've done this, we've had exceptional standout people have applied, and it's been a really tough decision to work out who do we think would be the person or the people that would go forward with this. So we don't want to rush things. We do want to take our time to make sure we've got the right decision, but we do want to see people in person for that. We think it's a really vital way, as Simeon's already said, to get to know someone. And the rest of that question was, are there a mix of phone calls in there? Alex, did you want to step in?
Yeah, so I'm going to assume that that one's speaking about whether there's a possibility to have an interview at a distance. I think usually interviews happen in person, and it's absolutely great if you can be there. But I know personally that sometimes things happen that mean you can't be there. So there may be ways to work around having a hybrid process where you might be on Zoom if we need to do that.
I seem to remember, Florence, that we met you on Zoom, didn't we, for your interview?
Yes, I had my final university exam that morning, so I was not coming to London for the day.
And
And that's
and
the main
also,
thing.
I'm smiling as well because Alex also had that experience of being in another country
I
whenever our
was.
interviews were happening.
I was in Thailand and it was, I think, about 10 o'clock at night. And then a very, very, very late phone call with Simeon afterwards.
Yeah, so we do have flexibility around these things. We prefer to do them in person, but as you can see, being online is no barrier to actually getting a role in the team. Florence, there's a question here just for you, which is about what extracurricular experience do you think supported you in your work for JPIT?
Mm. Um, I'm going to assume this is referring to like what I was involved before I was doing the internship, so I'm happy to share. I was involved with student organising at my university, so I was part of a climate justice society and part of also a Just Love group, which is Christians in social justice. So yeah, both of those experiences set me up really well, gave me lots of yeah, great experiences in trying to mobilize change in a university environment. So I've kind of moved to a church environment now. I would say those are the main things I was involved with, but I'm sure that you can demonstrate in whatever you've been involved with at university. I'm not saying you have to have done those things at all. But yeah, I think just demonstrating that you're passionate about how your faith intersects with politics and justice in the world around you, and yeah, a passion to see change in things around you. I think if you can demonstrate that and what you've been involved with, that will be really helpful. Yeah.
Mm. So I know we've got to just after 4:30, which is when we said we would be finishing this time. So some people may need to leave, and that's absolutely fine. If there are still, well, there are still a few more questions. So we're all happy to stay around for a few more minutes and answer those questions. But if you do have to go, don't worry. We are doing the recording of all of this, and we'll put it online afterwards. If you do have to go as well, do go to the JPIT website, jpit.uk/internship, and all the Methodist Church jobs pages, and there you will find all the details about how to apply, the person specification and job description, and other things about the terms and conditions of the role. And make sure you get your application in by the 22nd of April. If you do have other questions that we haven't answered and that we don't answer in the next few minutes, then you can always email the team. Our email address is on our website. It's very easy. hello@jpit.uk. But let's carry on with the other questions that we haven't yet answered. Is there an opportunity for a permanent role from this internship? Now, we can't make any guarantees about that. We're actually a relatively small team. There's a 9 or 10 of us employed in the team. So it depends whether an opportunity opens up. But we have had experiences in the past of people who were interns in the team going on to get permanent roles in the team, and also permanent roles working elsewhere within our church denominations too. So it's a really good preparation for the next step of your employment journey. But we don't guarantee that people who've been on an internship would automatically be moving into a permanent role in the team at the end of their time. Here's a good question maybe for Rue to answer. Do you recommend potential applicants get involved in the local churches in the lead up to the interviews? Would that help with the application process?
I would say that local church is a really good place for us to be trying to be justice seekers. They're good places for us potentially where we can start to flex some of those ideas and start to work out for ourselves what do we think society should look like. So I'd be really hopeful that many of you are connected with a local church in some way, even just for your own spiritual benefit as well as thinking about others in your community. But we completely accept that sometimes whenever we're at university that's not possible, or if you're in some other employment or you have other circumstances, it's not always possible to be part of a local church. So please don't just sort of get involved with a local church just for the sake of coming to an interview with us. That might not be the best reason to do that. But if you are considering going to a local church, go anyway. But some of you will be involved in student groups, perhaps. Just Love, Florence might tell you about SCM or Students' Union, other groups like that, where you might have a family or some kind of support in the people who are helping you to develop your spirituality as well. But yeah, please don't feel that you have to start going to a local church just so you can get a job with us. That would not feel right. But yes, if you do have experience and whatever kind of experience in the local church, in your local church or another church where you've grown up maybe, be ready to share those things in interview as well. There might be some really good examples that you can bring of how you've worked as part of a team, perhaps in your church, or how your church has been involved in various ways of trying to improve society or trying to impact society in a positive way. So those are good reasons to be part of a local church, but just for an interview is probably not a good reason to join a local church.
Yeah, thank you. There's a question about whether people will need to do a presentation as part of the interview, and that is very likely that we'll include a presentation, an opportunity for you to share both some of the things that you know about and that you're passionate about, and also show us that you're capable of presenting well and communicating well. So we do usually include a presentation, but if you get to the interview stage, you'll be given a sort of full brief for that and what's expected of you in that in that process. A question is about what would you say, or who would you say is the ideal applicant for the roles? And Rue, I think you're happy to answer that.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you the worst answer possible, which is there is no ideal applicant. The ideal applicant does not exist. And in this particular role, this particular opportunity, we are really looking for people based on criteria that you've got on the online thing. So that's what we're looking for, people who can fulfill some of those criteria. But we're looking for something else as well. We're looking for people that we can invest in, people that we can spend time with and help you and develop you as much as you would like us to, and for you to walk on that journey for a year with us as you kind of work out yourself what you want to do with life. Perhaps this is an ideal opportunity for someone who is maybe unsure of what the next steps are, but really has a burning passion for justice and wants to learn more about that. When I first started in the role that I have, I was pretty new to the ideas that I was facing, and I felt maybe like on a huge learning curve. And part of me was thinking, I don't feel that I'm really equipped for this or I'm ready for this. But actually, being part of a team like the Joint Public Issues team, where there's all kinds of different people with different backgrounds and different skills coming together, that whole constellation of different people coming together, I have learned and grown so much through that, and you will as well, as part of our team. So there is no ideal person to apply for the role. I think what we're looking for is people who really are looking to explore and looking to grow and to enjoy that experience of being around other people who are also really passionate about justice too. That's the kind of applicant that we'd be looking for.
Great, thank you, Rue. I think we're getting to the end of the questions that have been submitted, and also well beyond the time that we said we would finish and wrap up the webinar. So thank you all for attending, and those who stuck with it to the end. I hope it's been helpful. I hope it's encouraged you to feel that you might be the person we are looking for, and that you now feel a bit more equipped to go and fill in the online application form. As we say, the Methodist Church application system is all online. It's a straightforward process of putting in your details and then answering those 3 questions that Rue talked through earlier, and just pressing submit at the end of it. So I hope you will go away and do that. Just a reminder that the website to go to is jpit.uk/internship, and there you will find also ways to contact us and probably answers to the other questions. So thank you very much for joining us. Thanks to my colleagues, to Alex, to Rue, and to Florence for being part of the conversation, and hope to meet some of you at some point soon.
Bye.
Bye.